Hello everyone, welcome back to the Card Combo Show, and welcome to 2024, the Year of the Dragon. And yeah, we're just continuing the Card Combo Show as always with some fun Opus 21 cards. I think after this card I'll probably start diving back into some older cards I've wanted to cover, because sometimes you just don't have enough time to cover all the interesting cards of a set. And then sometimes, you know, new things become available from older cards that are interesting. Anyway, the card I'm looking at this week is Lehftia from Opus 21. So she's a 2CP fire, oh my god, what's a good start, aren't we? Welcome to 2024. She is a 2CP fire forward 5k with the text, if your fire summon or fire character you control deals damage to a forward, the damage increases by 2000 instead. And damage 3, when Lehftia enters the field, choose one forward dependent controls, deal at 6000 damage. So the idea is at damage 3, you play her onto the field, she'll actually deal 8k and not 6. However, some things to be aware of with Lehftia's effects is that she says a fire character you control deals damage. So if you don't control the forward, or sorry, the character, when the damage resolves, that damage is not increased. So if you play Lehftia onto the field, that triggers her deal 6k damage effect, and your opponent responds by killing Lehftia. Obviously you won't get the 2k plus damage anyway, but let's say hypothetically you would. The 6k will just be 6k. Now, what you could do, hypothetically, is let's say you play Lehftia onto the field, try to deal 6k/8k to something, your opponent responds by killing Lehftia. Let that resolve, Lehftia dies, but then you cast Phoenix. So choose up to one forward, of course, 2 or less in your break zone, play onto the field, deal 2000 damage to all the forward dependent controls. So that would mean that you then cast Phoenix, Lehftia enters the field again, Phoenix will deal 4k, and the great thing about this as well is the fact that if Phoenix is playing Lehftia onto the field, you are definitely dealing 4k, because Phoenix's resolution, or its 2 effects of deal 2k and play the forward onto the field, are all one effect, but the order of operation is play the forward onto the field, full stop, deal 2000 damage to all the forward dependent controls. So Lehftia will enter the field first, and then the damage will be dealt. It's not simultaneous. So it means that Lehftia will be present when the damage is dealt, which then means that the damage will be increased. So, pretty nice. Now, using the example I was just talking about, if say you play Lehftia onto the field, she dies, you then respond with Phoenix, she then enters the field again. You've then got a stack of Lehftia's original entry, Phoenix, and then Lehftia's second entry. Now, Lehftia's second entry will have her power, will have the damage she's dealing buffed by 2. Because you control her, so that means the 6k upon entry is then buffed to 8. However, the original cast of her, where she was responded to and killed, you will not get the buff, because even though technically this is the same card, it is not the same instance of this forward, so therefore you would only get 6k. So play Lehftia onto the field, try to deal 8k to something, she dies, replay it back onto the field before that 6k is dealt, it's still only 6k, however, obviously, like I said before, you still get Lehftia re-entering and dealing 8k to something, and then Phoenix will also make it 2k. And yeah, just talking about Phoenix for a second, it's a bit of a weird one, but because this is play the forward onto the field, full stop, means that Lehftia will enter, and then 2000 is dealt to the forward dependent controls. However, because this isn't like staggered or anything, it's not like play it onto the field and then, or, you know, if you do so, things like that, it doesn't create a second effect or a second stackable effect. It is all one effect. It just has an order of operation in which it happens. So Lehftia enters the field, then 2k is dealt to everything. So if Lehftia is entering the field, your opponent can't respond by killing her before Phoenix's 2k is resolved, and even if there's something on the field that would kill her as soon as she enters, so let's say hypothetically there's what's that card, the 2CP lightning monster, is it Black Knight, Dark Knight, something like that, when a forward of 4 or less enters the field, break it, even that wouldn't kill Lehftia before Phoenix is resolved, because Phoenix has to resolve in full. Obviously, your opponent can respond by removing Lehftia from the break zone using something like the Emperor Gestalt, but still, so long as Phoenix is able to play Lehftia onto the field, Phoenix will be dealing 4k, which is pretty cool. Faris. So, when Faris enters the field or attacks, deal 1000 damage to all forwards. When Faris or a job warrior like you control, you know, they deal damage, you then get to deal stuff 3k as well for each warrior of light that's been dealt damage. Now, when a fire character you control deals damage to a forward, the damage is increased by 2k. So that includes to your forwards as well. So, let's say you attack with Faris, and you deal Faris, Luneth, and, I don't know, Arc, 1000 through Faris, that actually becomes 3000 to each of your forwards. So bear that in mind, because this is kind of working against you as much as it's working for you. So it means that it becomes a lot easier for your opponent to then kill your forwards as well. But still, you then are able to deal 3k, boost it up to 5k. So, like I said, if you've got Faris, Lunith, and Arc, I don't know, something like that, you then got 3 lots of 5k to dish out, which is not too shabby. And provided Faris is still on the field, then she is the one that's going to be dealing the increased damage. And that's something to bear in mind with lots of these effects as well. As let's say Faris has dealt damage to Warrior of Light, so therefore you get to deal 3k boosted to 5. If your opponent kills Warrior of Light, obviously before Faris, then that you wouldn't get the ping, but if your opponent killed Warrior Light after Faris has dealt it damage, you would still get the 5k ping because the damage is originating from Faris, not from the Warrior of Light. But yeah, either way, it's just a nice way to be able to boost the damage that Faris is dealing to things. And like I said before, the damage is being dealt to your forwards as well, so it means that you are dealing 3k to your forwards, but also dealing 3k to your opponent's forwards. So it means that you've dealt 3k to all their forwards, and then potentially a further 5k for each of the forwards you control, each of the Warriors of Light you control. So yeah, not too bad. Just bear in mind that obviously Lehftia is on the field when this is happening. It means that she's only got 2k till she's dead. Palom. So, a bit of a weird one, but choose on forward, deal at 2k damage, that then becomes 4k. That's not too bad, to be honest. That's able to not really kill anything, but there are certain utilities to that. However, if Palom is allowed to stay on the field for long enough, then he will start dealing 8k boosted to 10. Being able to pay 0 and deal 10 to something is pretty significant. But still, being able to deal 4k to something does have its uses, like Megissa. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, if you've got Palom on the field for too long, then you can't use Palom to hit Megissa anymore, because then she will die rather than using her effect. But it is a nice way just to be able to trigger her effect a bit earlier if you wanted to. So yeah, Palom onto Megissa to then go search stuff. I mean, there are easier ways probably to deal a bit of damage to Megissa through other cards and other effects, but still, it's another means of being able to get it and effectively paying it for free. And that's 2 pay 0 effects as well, so you're just getting to search things and play onto the field for free. It's not bad. Squall, yeah. So when he attacks, he'll 4k boosted up to 6k, so 6k to your opponent's board, and then if they block, that's a further 6k to their board. That's pretty significant. I've gone over this in my Tulian video, but just in case you haven't seen it. Tulian! Yeah, so let's say you have Tulian on the field, you force something to block, Squall attacks, deals 6k, has to block, or the forward has to block, that's a further 6k to your opponent's board. 12k to their board's probably going to kill everything, unless they've got some sort of stopping ability effect like Yuzuki or something like that. But still, yeah, really, really good. And even though obviously Tulian is an Earth, you could hypothetically be running a mono fire Warriors deck using Tyvas. So you play Tyvas onto the field, search to Tulian, play Tulian onto the field, attack with Squall, deal 6k, block, deal further 6k. Yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. We're in the new year now, and the channel's been doing quite well recently, and funnily enough, I have seen an increase in my subscribers, sorry, since I've been saying this more frequently. So yeah, it does have an effect. It's mostly just due to YouTube actually showing more people my stuff, which is kind of strange, but I think it just scans through the videos to see, are you actually trying? And because I'm actually trying now, I'm getting more subscribers. So yeah, make sure to subscribe. It actually makes a difference. Cyan, I mean, everyone knows this effect, right? But, you know, when he enters the field, you can pay X, and then you get 5 crystals. You then use those 5 crystals to deal 9k to your opponent's forwards. But with Lehftia on the field, that then becomes 11k to all your opponent's forwards, which is, I mean, that's going to kill pretty much everything, which is also good. But, you know what? I actually just quite like using Cyan's effect just for the pay crystals. Choose one forward, deal it 3k damage for just 1 crystal, so that becomes 5k with Lehftia. So, you know, even if you've got 2 crystals, that's pretty easy to be able to kill something, or even a big amount. Now, you put Samurai into this mix. This is kind of fun, though. This is a little bit of what I was talking about earlier about characters have to be on the field for their damage to be increased. So, Samurai you can put into the break zone to play a fire forward of 4 or less. And if it's a drop Samurai, then you get to deal 2,000 damage to all the forwards your opponent controls. So, you use Samurai to play Cyan onto the field. That will trigger Samurai's effect and deal 2k to the board. Now, that will not be increased by Lehftia because you don't control Samurai. But obviously, Cyan enters the field. You then, and I pay 5, get 5 crystals, then do that to deal 9k to the field, which is then boosted to 11, plus the 2k from Samurai. So, 13 to your opponent's board, which is not too shabby. Now, obviously, Firion is a nice one to throw in with this as well, because, you know, you can have a kind of crystal-focused fire deck. And when a character your opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone, gain a crystal. This effect will only trigger once per turn. Be careful in fire, because there are things that say if it would be put from the field into the break zone, remove it instead, which then won't trigger Firion's effect, so be mindful of that. But either way, if you're using Cyan to kill things using his crystals, that means Firion is refunding you some. So, like I said earlier, Cyan, you can pay a crystal, deal something 5k. That also affords a 5k, just a nice easy kill, and you get that crystal back. Now, if you're having to deal 10k to something, so 2 crystals, using Lehftia's effect as well, then you're going to want to get that second crystal back. So, Spiritus. So, with Cyan and Lehftia and Firion and Spiritus, now this is obviously kind of like a win more situation. If you've got these 3 on the field, or these 4 technically on the field, and you're doing the thing, you're probably already in a pretty strong position. But nonetheless, if you use 2 of Cyan's crystals to deal 10k to something, because you've got Lehftia, you'll gain 1 of the crystals back through Firion, and you'll gain another of the crystal back through Spiritus, because at the end of each of your turns, if you've paid 2 or more crystals this turn, gain a crystal. So you just keep on getting 2 crystals back. Bomb. So when Bomb enters the field, choose one forward, deal it 5,000 damage. So Bomb is like one of the few monsters, well sorry, not few monsters, one of the few worthwhile monsters that will actually have his damage increase, because most bombs put themselves into the break zone to deal damage, and a lot of monsters in general, they have their effects through them being broken. So yeah, Bomb actually entering the field and staying on the field to deal 5k is nice, because then obviously Lehftia will increase that to 2,000, and if you've got Jin as well, it means that then becomes 8k. I mean, that's not too bad, to be honest. Now, we have the Opus 21 Bomb, who you can pay 1 fire, dull, put into the break zone, choose one forward, deal 4,000 damage, and then search for a card named Bomb and play it onto the field. So this bomb's damage will not be increased because you no longer control the character, sorry. So Lehftia won't increase that. But you still get to do 4k something. You then search this bomb. I keep on saying this and that as if you can see which one I'm pointing to. You then search the FF12 bomb, play that onto the field. That will then deal 7k to something. Shoot out 4 and 7. Hopefully it's going to kill something, and it probably should do. Yeah, I already mentioned as well, you've got Jin. So what you could do is you play Bomb onto the field with Lehftia, that then becomes 7. If you then make Bomb a forward in response to its own entry effect, that will then gain an additional 1k damage from the Jin as well. So it might be that you're just hard casting the Bomb from hand to deal 8k to something. Now obviously the one downside to this is the fact that Bomb will then die at the end of the turn. So that kind of sucks. It's kind of like a summon, I guess, like at the end of the turn. But if you've got some means of utilizing that through killing it through your own effects, as a downside to something. What's the card? Is it Chimera? The lightning monster? It's like 1 CP, you play it onto the field. Break a character you control. If it's going to die anyway, you could break the bomb. But, you know, there's loads of different ways of being able to save your forwards if you really wanted to, or maybe give Bomb haste and attack with it, I don't know. But, yeah, you can deal 1 additional K through Bomb and Jin if you really wanted to. Talking of Jin, so here's a fun little play. So Jin obviously increases the damage that forwards deal, and Lehftia increases all characters' damage. Jin works with pretty much every single one of these combos. It's worth noting as well. Like with Squall earlier, dealing 7k to your opponent's board's pretty brutal as well. But yeah, Ninja. I bet nobody expected this card because it's not very good. But nonetheless, so it's a first strike, and when Ninja is blocked, deal the blocking forward 2,000 damage. So with Lehftia on the field, that becomes 4k. With Jin on the field, that then becomes 5k. And then, if the forward doesn't die to that initial 5k, it will then take an additional 7k from Ninja. And again, he's first strike. So that means you have dealt 13k to something? No, sorry, 12k. Ugh, I can't do math. But yeah, so both instances of Ninja's damage, through both his ability and his actual power damage, will be boosted by 3k through both Jin and Lehftia, which is kind of funny. Again, really not a great forward, but kind of hilarious nonetheless, I guess. And then Bergen. Bergen's a fun one. So his abilities aren't amazing, but in the right situation, they're actually very, very annoying because so when Bergen blocks or is blocked, deal 7,000 damage to the forward that blocks or is blocked by Bergen. Now you're not targeting that forward, so anything that would say cannot be targeted by an ability or summon, doesn't matter, you're not targeting them. They just fulfill the prerequisite of being the forward that is blocking or blocked. So yeah, Bergen would deal 7k. With Lehftia, that then becomes 9k. With Jin, that then becomes 10k. Now, obviously, you have to pay 3 fire backups to play Bergen on the field, so no, discarding command and whatever, but still, being able to deal 10k to something whenever you block with Bergen, and that's before any damage is dealt. So your opponent could even be attacking with Warrior of Light to, multi-element Warrior of Light. Attack with him, you block with Bergen, deal Warrior of Light 10k. Doesn't matter that he's first strike because Bergen's ability damage will resolve before any combat damage. Not too shabby. Vermilion Bird Lassie Kaituna, so similar to the Jin, having means of buffing damage that you can deal is quite nice. Now, something I forgot to mention earlier, actually, about Lehftia is if your fire summons or fire characters you control deals damage to a forward, blah, blah, blah. But it's just if your fire summons deal damage. Now, with the fire characters, they have to be on the field for that damage to be increased. With your fire summons, the only prerequisite is that it has to be a fire summon that you own. Now, obviously, you can't control summons. You can cast them, though. But that doesn't matter. So long as you have a fire summon resolving in some way, shape, or form, it's still getting its damage increased. And that includes with EXs. So if it's something like Brynhilda resolving from an EX burst, then you get both Lehftia and Vermilion Birdless Sea Kaituna's effects to resolve. So that 5k EX burst just became a, I don't know, 8k EX burst. Salamander. Really, I mean, yeah, again, with Vermilion Bird, similar to Jin, just apply it to every single, effect here because it's just pretty decent. And Vermilion Bird straight into Phoenix, straight into Lehftia. That's 5k to your opponent's board, and then potentially 8k from Lehftia as well. That's not too bad. Anyway, yeah, Salamander with Lehftia, that's just a 7k board wipe for 3 CP. If you've got Kaituna on the field, that's an 8k board wipe to the field. You then pay the additional effect of removing 10 fire cards from your breaks in, and you're probably going to be mono fire. That's then a 10k board wipe for 3 CP. That's not too bad in the slightest. Ifrit, 5k now becomes 7k, or 2 instances of 7k. Again, with Kaituna, 2 lots of 8k. You could even then have the Terra, who will deal 2k buffed by Lehftia to then 4k. So, that's probably definitely killing 2 things. Ifrit. So choose 2 forwards, divide 10,000 between them, but it doesn't matter how you divide it, you still then get the buff from Lehftia. So it could be 10k to 1 forward, that becomes 12k, or it could be 8 and 2 to something, that will then become 10 and 4. So a nice way to buff that. And obviously the 15k would get buffed as well. Ifrit. Lehftia, if your opponent tries to maybe Amaterasu her in response to her entry effect just to get rid of her, you can respond by free casting Ifrit and dealing 9k something. I've never really liked this Ifrit much, to be honest, because I always found the fact that 7k damage isn't quite enough to kill a lot of things these days. It's nice that it can be free cast, but it generally wants to be used alongside other things like Terra, for example. But yeah, with Lehftia, that then becomes a 9k. With Kaituna, again, that becomes 10k. A 10k free cast is pretty good. Right, Edgar. So his auto crossbow S and Dull. Choose up to 3 forwards, deal them 5,000 damage. Lehftia, that now becomes 7k to 3 different forwards. That's not too shabby. You combine that with something else that's dealing board-wide damage. That's alright. Red 13. So when he enters the field, you can discard a card and you can pay 2. At which point you will deal 7k twice. More, just buff it up to 9 with Lehftia. Mont Blanc. Could deal 5k, now becomes 7k, or could deal 8k, now becomes 10k. Just nice little backups that are pretty effective in mono fire, that are good at just killing stuff, that utilise Lehftia pretty efficiently. Vraska, yeah, discard a summon, or himself, choose one forward, deal it 7k damage. That now becomes 9k. You got Jin, that's now 10k. For just discarding a card. That's pretty brutal. You can do it as many times as you want as well, so bleh. Cleome. So at the end of each of your turns, you get 2 counters on Cleome, and then you can remove a counter to do things. One of those things is deal 1,000 damage to something. So with Lehftia on the field, that then becomes 3k. If you've got, again, Jin, that then becomes 4k. So at the end of the turn, if she gains 2 counters in your opponent's turn, you can then just 8k something, 4k 2 things, whatever. It's up to you. But the longer Cleome's on the field, the bigger of a problem she becomes, especially with stuff like Lehftia and Jin. And as I said earlier, Terra, because Terra's really good and she deals 2k to everything. 2k to everything? She deals 2k to things when you cast summons, and you can free cast summons, you can play summons that are dealing damage to the whole board, who knows, but there's just so many good ways to be able to utilize Terra in this deck. This isn't a deck. Why did Lehftia disappear in that last screen? That's weird. Zac. So when Zac or a 5 forward enters the field, choose a forward, deal it 2k, and when Zac or category 7 forward enters the field, choose one forward, deal it 2k damage. So with Lehftia, that then becomes 4k. And that obviously applies to playing Zac onto the field as well. So you play Zac onto the field whilst in control of Lehftia, you're then dealing 8k to something, or 2 lots of 4k to something, so 8k to something, which is not too shabby. And again, if you control Jin, that then becomes 10k to something, which is really, really good. And you throw this Tifa into the mix, When a category 7 character you control deals damage to a forward your opponent controls, choose one forward against this forward cannot block until the end of turn. That's actually pretty good, because what you could do here, and again this is if you've got Lehftia, Zac, maybe Jin, and you play Tifa onto the field, that fulfills, sorry, can't say the word fulfills, so that doesn't fit right in my mouth. It works with Zac by triggering both his fire effect and his 7 effect, so it means that you'll get to deal 2k, 4k, 5k, whatever, to 2 things, or 1 thing. So you could hypothetically choose 1 10k forward, Warrior of Light, and deal him 2 lots of 5k, he'll die, but that triggers Tifa twice because Zac has dealt the damage twice, which means that you can then make 2 other forwards not block as well, which is actually quite hilarious. Or it could be that your opponent's got maybe he's got 4 forwards and 2 small forwards that are both of 5k. You shoot those 2 with Zac's effect, and then you make the other 2 not block. That's not too bad. Yeah, it's a nice way to be able to just really shift a lot of things out of the way pretty quickly. And that is Lehftia, a really decent fire card that just does a lot of what fire needs, which is just power increase, damage increase. She's kind of like a better Adelard, but also not, because Adelard having the effect of making it so ability damage can't be reduced is really, really nice. But I don't know, I feel like you run some of the Opus 21 Bahamut in a mono fire deck just to be able to get rid of the cards that do have some sort of damage proof effects as well, like Yuzuki, for example. So that way you can just get rid of the protection through that, and then let things like Lehftia and Squall and whoever else, the demon, do all the heavy lifting and, you know, clear the board after that point. But yeah, Lehftia, just the fact that it's a 2k damage increase is pretty monumental. She's easy to be replayed through things like Phoenix as well, and to be honest, even just replaying her off of the Samurai that I mentioned earlier to get back onto the field to increase damage that's dealt and deal AK upon entry as well, it's just really strong. I really, really like Lehftia. I built a summonless forward only, or not forward only, I had backups as well, but only like mostly forwards deck with Lehftia, and it was actually a lot of fun utilising things like General Leo and making it so that you know, you can be blocking, but you're going to be dealing lots of damage through your forwards anyway, and your forwards are probably going to be surviving anyway, so it was a lot of fun. But next up is going to be a summon-heavy deck, utilising things like Braska and that sort of thing, Terror as well, and there's so many good summons. Like I said earlier with Salamander, just being able to board wipe for 3 CP is so strong, and pretty funny, to be honest. But yeah, what would you guys do with Lehftia? How have you put her into decks, and what have you found that, do you like her? Do you think she's good? Do you think she's bad? I don't know. And anyway, next week, no idea what I'm going to be doing, but it's going to be an old card. Alright. Happy New Year. See you later. Bye.